Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
So, the Missouri School Improvement Program, or MSIP. What is MSIP? Well, it's the state system for reviewing and accrediting local education agencies, or LEAs. It outlines the expectations for school practices and student outcomes, with the goal of each student graduating ready for success in college and career in life.
A lot of anticipation yesterday as it related to DESE scores coming out yesterday. First thing I do want to let you know, they're saying, well, you can't use these to compare to previous years because we have changed how we did this. And this is, by the way, as we bring you this morning, this is right after I spoke with DESE, with the head of DESE, Margie Van Dieven, last night at an event, the annual Missouri Statesman of the Year Award, going to Senator John Rizzo. He is a Democrat. Margie Van Dieven was there last night. Spoke with her a little bit, not so much about the test scores, because we were there to have fun, not talk business. And then the second thing I want to do, here are some local headlines, Marsh. We're going to find out which local schools did the best and which did the worst. You probably already know the answers. Here's some local headlines. Latest testing data show K-12 student performance dropped dramatically across Missouri. I don't know what they're comparing that to. CPS scores in the bottom half of state schools in DESE's annual performance report. As a matter of fact, Helen Wade. Yeah, right. Helen Wade, by the way, she's one heck of an attorney. She really is. She's done some very questionable and downright despicable things while serving when she was president of the Columbia Public School Board, namely shutting down a meeting for absolutely no reason. We've played the audio 100 times here in the show. I don't want to revisit that, but you know how I know she's a good attorney? Well, we could ask Eric Greitens' ex-wife. In that custody battle. Helen Wade was the attorney who repped Sheena Greitens, and she did an incredible job. She is a great attorney. Here's her take.
We were presented with an update by our superintendent, which contains some fairly dismal data. Dismal
data. Houseworth, what was the jaws of CPS? Do you know what the reaction has been from PR as it relates to the CPS? Because that's the former president of the school board, current school board member, saying
dismal data.
Dismal data.
Yeah, I know that they always take a look at that sort of thing, and Michelle and Dr. Yearwood will try to improve on it. The numbers are, and Chuck Basie, who's running for school board, former state representative. He said on this show about a month ago that the test scores in CPS were, I believe he used the word atrocious or horrific. I mean, it was a very strong term. The comment from Helen Wade is not a whole lot far from what Chuck said here on the show.
So you can say current school board member Helen Wade and Chuck Basie agree. By the way, there was a forum last night, candidate forum. If you are voting in the Columbia Public School District school board race, you're wanting to know who to vote for, you vote for Chuck Basie and John Potter. John Potter and Chuck Basie. More local headlines following the release of scores. This relates to specifically CPS. CPS scores in bottom half of state schools in DESE's annual performance report. New report card shows a stressed CPS and key academics and absenteeism. I bet their absenteeism is high. Their buses hardly run. They have issues all the time with this company, this contract to do buses. We get complaints all of the time. Again, there's more problems for them. This from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. New rating system shows decline for Missouri schools. Now, we'll go back to the COVID pandemic. Which was what government... It was not a COVID pandemic. It was a government pandemic. It was a pandemic of poor decisions by government officials nationwide. We had some... I appreciate what Governor Parson did. He said, I'm going to let local leaders figure out what they want to do. And we can see around mid-Missouri... folks that clamped down and said, well, we're going to take kids out of school, put them in face masks and do all this. And there was a whole bunch of folks saying, we think it's a bad idea to take kids out of school, especially the least vulnerable to what now a lot of doctors are saying, yeah, COVID, pretty much like the flu. Because remember what they said before? This is nothing like the flu. They also said, the masks aren't helpful. Then they said they were helpful. Then they said they weren't helpful. And then they said it didn't come from a lab. I said, well, couple of intelligence agencies now say that is the most likely course. So you can't follow this stuff. And we had said, and I want to say this, and I want to give some kudos to former Wake Up Mid-Missouri family member, Laura Nauser, served on city council. She was part of the family here for a couple of years. Once you're a member of the family, you're always a member of the family. She said, listen, you take kids out of the classroom, all right, or you put them in masks, especially these young kids. And I think about Stephanie Bell's kids. By the way, Steph is back tomorrow. The very formative years of her 3 young kids in masks, out of school, things like that. People like Laura Nauser were saying several years ago, watch the test scores, watch what happens to kids.
I was looking at the numbers, and it's interesting that Columbia and Jefferson City both got 70%, which translates into a C- if you go back to our era and all. And, you know, a couple of districts that handled the pandemic differently. You know, Jefferson City spent a whole lot more time in the classroom, and they still came out with kind of a dismal middle-of-the-road report.
Yeah. St. Louis Post-Dispatch, new rating system shows decline for Missouri schools. Oh, and did you see this in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch also?
I saw, yeah. The interesting thing about the spat between Congressman Gates and Congressman Luetkemeyer is the headline in the, and by the way, a good write-up, and you handled it very well, and it was a good write-up written by Joe Holloman, who covers radio and television for the Post-Dispatch. He doesn't write the headlines. Those are written by a copywriter, I'm sure, in St. Louis. But the headline was Florida man, and you'll have to look up the headline, but it was something, Florida man criticizes Missouri congressman. Well, he's not a Florida man. He's a prominent congressman. I mean, and they were. It's like some guy, you know, sitting down in Jupiter, Florida, or something, criticized Blaine Luetkemeyer. It was Matt Gaetz, and they are being criticized by that. That the reporters don't write that; those are written by copy editors. But yes, it's gotten a lot of attention.
It reminds me of like the dumb criminal stories that I cover in What's Hot with Hannah. Florida man. And your brain immediately goes, uh-oh.
We'll back up a little bit here. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer on the show the other day. Stephanie Bell asked him about more cameras in House hearings, things like that. He did not say any names, and I said, Matt Gaetz, and he went to town. Matt Gaetz picked it up on Twitter. Marsh, did you see the latest Twitter numbers on that post this morning?
312,000 views.
Wow. Your little old show here in Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 312,000 views, hundreds of thousands of shares. The video from your favorite morning show, the video clip has been viewed over 100,000 times. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch. This is why we call this Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We're a local radio station to Centralia, to Jefferson City, to Columbia, to Boonville, to Montauk County, to Callaway. By the way, Callaway Lincoln Day is coming up Monday. Check that out. We are local to Sturgeon. We are local to Moberly. We are local to St. Thomas. We are a local radio station here in mid-Missouri. And I think the story from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, picking up a story from your radio station, right? And I'm not saying this to brag, and I hope I'm not sounding that way. That's not what I'm trying to do. That is the impact and the influence of this show. That is the impact and the influence because of people like John Marsh. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
It's because of people like Brian Houseworth. What's up, bud?
You know, good morning. Your question to the congressman was a good one. He responded, there's got to be some history between Gaetz and Luetkemeyer. There's got to be something somewhere, but the Post-Dispatch wrote about it, and I expect it'll continue to get picked up.
Stephanie Bell, it's because of people like her and because of people like producer Hannah. Cheri Reisch, one of our local state reps, she's going to be joining us 6:35. Might talk more about legislation as it relates to these poor performing schools according to test scores. She's going to be joining us 6:35 for that. One of the other things we're doing this morning, Attorney General Andrew Bailey sent me an email. He says, hey, look, here's some of the top consumer complaints. But it's Missouri. Top complaints, consumer complaints from the state of Missouri. It's pretty cool. We're going to do that a little bit later this morning here on the show. So the best performing schools in mid-Missouri, according to these DESE test scores, Cole County districts RV and R1.
Yeah, which would be R5 is Cole County,
Why?
Eugene, and yeah.
Thanks
Did you just say RV?
RV, yeah, they don't have any physical buildings.
And
they
RI.
just have them in big RVs, and they drive up and down the highway.
On today's episode of Wake Up in Missouri, Branden learns Roman numerals.
Hey, remember how we were just bragging about how great and impactful this show is? And then the main...
Oh, it's impactful. I don't know if it's the desired effect, but it's impactful.
Yeah, what the heck?
And the host doesn't know how to read in Roman numerals.
Come on, Joe.
Cole County RV and Cole County RI, which is Rhode Island.
R1.
R1 and R5. Top performing schools according to these test scores.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty impressive. And by the way, the test scores, it's like a combination of scores and attendance. It's they create this formula. Fulton, doing okay. Jefferson City School District, doing okay. Cheri, Toalson, Reisch here, 6:35. Talk about this more in depth, and it's amazing if you look deeper into the numbers. And here's why this matters. Even if you don't have kids in school, maybe you have grandkids in school. A couple of months ago, when you went to the tax assessor's office and you paid your property tax bill, did you look at it? And I will tell you, and I'm being honest, my heart dropped when I saw how much I pay for schools and how poorly they perform, as we have evidence of this morning. When we see things that happening, like kids being taken to drag shows and not telling parents about it, my heart broke when I looked at my property tax bill. And John, maybe it should be like your IRA. Next time you pay your property tax bill, maybe you shouldn't look at how much you're giving to schools. You just don't look. But it hurts. It's infuriating, and it's
especially
sad.
for folks on fixed incomes. I mean, retirees and lower income folks, and they, you don't have an option. There's the bill, pay it.
Yeah, you don't have you have to pay it. And you kind of want something in return. And the bigger point is, and I'll, we could look at what's happening in the Cole County schools and how well they're doing in Southern Boone and that's why people want to move to places like Ashland. That's why people want to go to places in Cole County, because their schools perform well. It is ultimately good for the community. And we can look at other mid-Missouri school districts, i.e. Columbia Public School District. The superintendent should resign. Any decent human being who has done what he has done to this school district should resign, and he's not doing it. He just won't do it, and that's sad because that's ego and it's poor decision making, and he's hurting not just kids, hurting not just parents, but you hurt our community. You ruin our community whenever we get national press coverage for our school districts. It's not good. Coming up a few minutes from now, 6:25 Daily DC Rundown. What
My heart goes out to those that need medical marijuana, but on a broader scale, I also think about what it can do to people that don't need it.
You just need to look at some of the other states that have been doing this already. You know, it's tried and true.
We opened up the front flap to the circus tent this morning, and out came a big old puff of smoke. That's getting us into to today's daily D.C. rundown. Stephanie's back tomorrow. So one of our neighboring states, Oklahoma, went to the polls yesterday to vote on the legalization of recreational marijuana. Now, they already do have medicinal marijuana. There was a late blitz of opposition from faith leaders, law enforcement, and prosecutors, and obviously a big push on the side in favor of the final results. Oklahoma said, extinguish that dude, man. We don't want it.
Don't pass it around.
It did not get passed around. Here. We'll vote on it next time. The final vote was 63-38. Oklahoma would have become the 22nd state to legalize adult use of the weed and join conservative states like yours truly that have approved similar proposals. Many conservative states have also rejected the idea. Arkansas, North Dakota, and South Dakota, as we kind of look around what's happening around here. The Republican governor there, Kevin Stitt, and many of the state's GOP legislators opposed the idea. Everybody pretty happy about that. President Joe Biden's support of a Listen, look at what's happened over the past couple of days. Joe Biden potentially going back to another. It's not the first time he's done this as it relates to illegal immigration, but potentially going back to another Trump-era policy. Why? Because it's a conservative idea that worked. And now, Biden's support of a Republican resolution to block new District of Columbia crime laws has split members of his own party amid rising concerns about crime in the nation's capital and other cities. Now, this was something Washington, D.C., they wanted to lessen penalties for serious crimes. What the hell are you doing? You don't lessen penalties, especially now. They wanted to do it. And because D.C. is not a state, the folks in Washington, D.C., in the Capitol building have some say-so. So this was a GOP-led disapproval resolution. It will easily pass the Senate today with ample Democratic support. I think this is part of that snapback, Marsh, where we look at Lori Lightfoot. People voted for her because she was the black female lesbian. I'm going to vote for her because she's black and lesbian. That's woke as it gets. That didn't work out so well. You look at several universities across the nation saying, we're getting rid of this diversity, equity, and inclusion language because it's BS. And now Democrats, I think, they're going, man, crime? That's a real problem. We shouldn't do this. I see it as snapback. You know?
It's interesting. Well, it's that same debate we've heard about on more of a local level about state control potentially for St. Louis law enforcement. This is kind of a federal overreach.
That's right. They're saying, hey, listen, we got to do something different here. Biden admit, this is a good move. The one country you want to relax COVID-19 testing restrictions on? Travelers from China.
There you go.
Man. Here we're almost... John, it sounded almost like we were this close to giving Joe some kudos for going back to a Trump-era policy on illegal immigration, for supporting a Republican resolution to do away with lighter sentences in the District of Columbia. And then he says, oh, you know what? On China, especially right now on China, we're going to relax testing on the COVID stuff for people coming. Remember, they had kind of tightened them up again whenever China started having problems. And now they're saying, oh, no, we're going to loosen them up. All right, we're going to look some more into these test scores. State Rep Cheri Reisch is joining us. Coming up 7:10 this morning, what Kevin McCarthy had
She trains at 6 a.m. every morning. She spent years working to shave off seconds. She's the captain of her school's team. He's just a mid-pack finisher, but not today. Unfortunately, this competition was over before it even began. Woke left-wing politicians are destroying girls' sports. Tell Biden and his radical allies, no men in girls' sports.
Boom. That's an ad. Citizens for Sanity. What a simple name. It's a simple name, but it says a lot. Citizens for Sanity. In other words, y'all are insane right now, pushing this transgender stuff and allowing this unfairness in sports. And here's the thing, and I want to preface everything that I'm about to say next with State Rep Cheri Reisch. Listen, we don't have any issues with transgender people. I'm a very accepting human being. Whatever you want to do doesn't matter. But when you start affecting high school athletes, female high school athletes, by allowing dudes that think they're chicks to play, that's wrong. And that ad sums it up. That is flat out wrong. We had somebody on the show, and I apologize for not remembering her name. I can barely remember Hannah's name sometimes.
True.
But, yeah. We had on, she was a place kicker for Hickman High School. And she came on the show. And she was playing on the boys' football team because they don't have a chick football team. And you know what? You know why she got to play on the team? Because she was good enough to play on the team. That's why. And I subscribe to Dave Chappelle's thought. You know, if you want to do if you're good enough to play in the dude sports, go ahead. That's why we keep the sports separated. And this is not a chauvinistic thing. Science says men are physically superior to women. That's science. So there is nothing. It doesn't mean that we are cold-hearted SOBs for wanting fairness when it comes to our kids in schools. Discuss more on this. State Rep Cheri Reisch hanging out with us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Branden Rathert is here. Stephanie Bell back tomorrow. Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, producer Hannah is here. State Rep Cheri Reisch is joining us. Update on what is happening with transgender legislation in the Capitol.
Hi, good morning, Branden. Thank you for having me on. So bills are moving in the House and the Senate. They've had public hearings, and it hasn't come to the floor in the House for a vote yet. But Representative Chuck Basie had previously pushed this legislation last year and before. And just like you mentioned, it's not fair, the biological differences. And so this is one of the House priorities, is to get this across the finish line by the end of session. So
the priority here isn't anti-transgen. The priority is fairness for these.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
And not just sports, and this may upset a lot of people, or a few people actually, but, you know, we're also working in the House and Senate to ban surgeries of healthy body parts and hormone therapy of these children that are under 18. If you're 18 or older, you can do to your body whatever you want.
Yep, and I agree with that. Cheri, there is a point in time. So my first name is Henry, and I used to never share that because I was afraid somebody, it's not Branden Rathert, it's Henry Rathert. I'm gonna go on to onlinecourtfinder.com and find records on him. But now that all my stuff is out in the open, I don't care. I've gone by my middle name Branden for years. I wanted to change my name when I was a kid because I despised the name Henry, despite the fact that I was named after my dad, grandfather, great-grandfather, so on and so forth. And they put it to me two ways. They said, well, let's wait a year. And this is just a name change, a legal document. This wasn't my body being mutilated while I was under the age of 18. That's not what it was. They said you can wait a year, and then after a year, come back to it. Or you can wait until you're 18.
Exactly. I was at CPAC over the weekend, and they had a young woman who had transitioned to a man and then regretted that and said, you know, she was manipulated and convinced she was a boy, and now she had her breast cut off. Now she'll never, be able to, if she's even able to have children, never be able to nurse them, and other issues that she's going to have to deal with the rest of her life now because she was so young.
It is morally reprehensible that people would allow people to make lifelong changes to their bodies at such a young age, before the brain is fully developed. That is flat out sick. By the way, at CPAC, I heard you were partying with Jen Pukowski and Stephanie Bell.
Yeah, it was amazing, and don't believe what you see in some of the mainstream media when they say, "Oh, no enthusiasm," or the crowds were small. No, enthusiasm was very high, and I had a great time. I had breakfast with Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. I got to meet and talk with Marjorie Taylor Greene, among others.
Who's hotter in your opinion, Nikki Haley or Lauren Boebert?
Lauren Boebert.
Thank you. All right. Local state representative Cheri Reisch is hanging out with the show this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Representative, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Branden has reported this morning and mentioned some of the test scores. You and I talked just last week about test scores at CPS, and you told me that they had been dropping since 2015. I think the comment from Helen Wade that Branden played said the test scores or the results have been dismal, I believe is the term she used. You have filed a very simple bill. Essentially, it would authorize charter schools to operate here in CPS. You talked to us about a week ago. Any word on where that bill is? Have you had a chance to hear anything new from Mr. Plocker about when this is going to come up?
So it has not been referred to the Education Committee yet, but I am following closely. Senator Bill Eigel has a bill that would allow expansion of charter schools to any city over 30,000. And if I can at least get a public hearing, that would give me an opportunity to maybe throw it on as an amendment. But Representative Brad Pollitt from Sedalia, we passed in the House yesterday what we are calling a transfer bill that kids could transfer in or out of school districts. Now, a lot of schools I've been getting emails about are against it, but the thing is, you can opt in if you want to. Your school board makes that decision, and only 3% of a school's population could transfer out in any 1 year. And so it's not doom and gloom. It's not the end of the world, and we need to keep pushing down the road more and more school choice and options for these parents and children.
If I can follow up just very quickly, Jess Piper, who Branden knows he was on a television show with, she's going to be here in Columbia speaking at the Boone County, I believe, Democratic Chili Supper coming up. But she tweeted just yesterday on this issue, and this is what Jess Piper writes, who's a Democratic activist in Northwest Missouri. She's not elected, but well known with her Twitter following. She writes this, quote, "Privatizing public schools is big money. The big name folks you hear pushing for privatization are generally on a retainer from a billionaire. Pay attention." End of quote. Your thoughts on that?
I don't believe that. I don't know her, so I don't really know what her thought behind that is, but I don't believe it. But when I see Columbia has 70% score, they're the second lowest in Boone County. Now, I have to brag, Hallsville is number one. Ashland is a super close behind at number two, then Centralia. And, of course, all three of those schools are in my district. But Columbia has consistently, I've been following these APR scores for years. Now, what I'm going to do is an in-depth dive into the Columbia buildings, and you will find the school buildings in North Columbia that I'd represented for the last 6 years are just abysmal. And so the rest of the schools, say in Southwest Columbia, is what pulls that up to even 70%. So this is unacceptable. These kids are failing. The school is failing these kids, and they need help.
Okay. All right, State Rep Cheri Reisch joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Sir, by the way, and this is, I don't want to catch you off guard, but just thought I'd ask, have you seen any of the Tucker Carlson stuff on the previously unreleased J6 footage?
So because I'm working
that's what
12, 14-hour days, I've just caught bits and pieces. Okay. But I sat on a session at CPAC. 6 of the people that were arrested, convicted, and are now out gave their true stories. But this film, the footage that's been released, and I wish it could just go worldwide and not just from Tucker only, it's just what we thought. You know, people think we were conspiracy theorists, but when people were letting the big Buffalo guy right into the House chamber and opening the gates, you know, it's it's unbelievable. You know, when the committee on J6 selectively chose certain pictures and certain things, it's a big lie.
And it is interesting. And we have coming up 7:10, the truth about what is going on there. Kevin McCarthy, we have audio of him this morning reacting to Tucker Carlson airing that footage that Kevin McCarthy gave to Tucker, that Tucker aired the other night. We're going to have some of that coming up at 7:10 this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Mo. Anything else? Oh, and I want to mention this real quick before we let you go. I want to thank Kurt. I was trying to think of the name of the young lady that played for Rockbridge High School. And I said Hickman. I think it was Rockbridge. Trying to think of the female kicker that kicked on the team because she was good enough to play on the team. It was Sophie. Thank you for that, Kurt. As always, State Rep Cheri, Toalson, Reisch, we're appreciative of your time here on the show this morning.
Anytime. Take care and have a great day.
Coming up, Hannah was talking about, it sounds like a radio feature. We're talking a little bit now. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch has picked up your little old radio show here out of Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and the headline is something, a Florida man goes after Congressman Branden Rathert, but a Florida man. It sounds almost like a radio bit, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds like how I would intro a stupid criminal story.
It sounds like something you would hear at What's Hot with Hannah, which we do every morning, 7:25-ish. Doesn't it, John? It sounds like What's Hot with Hannah, and she would lead off with, well, a Florida man.
And that would be all except for this.
Except for this, St. Louis Post-Dispatch has now picked up our conversation with Branden Rathert as it relates to Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz retweeted somebody had John Combest, johncombest.com, posted some video of our conversation with Branden Rathert the other day when we asked about more video cameras on the House floor. And then I asked him about Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz picked up that tweet. It's been viewed over 300,000 times. The actual video itself, 100,000 times. And now the St. Louis Post-Dispatch has picked up the story. Kind of interesting. Coming up a few minutes from now. So instead of Florida man, I've got one for you, Hannah. A Mocaine man.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. You got to hear this story. It's
The entire recycling lot was just full of trash. Nothing was in the bin. The bins were overflowing.
That's Ashland City Administrator Kyle Michelle, who said yesterday, telling KRCG, listen, we've got an issue with our recycling. So recycling in Ashland, apparently people were dumping trash. And here's what my guess is, and I don't know if this is a fact. I'm just surmising here might be a possibility. But we see how neighboring town of Ashland, Columbia, has mishandled city leadership as a whole for a lot of years now, has mishandled trash collection. And is what happened, especially after that city came out with the monogram trash bags that you just dumped out onto your front yard. What would happen? A lot of people say, I'm not buying these bags. I'm not doing it. They were taking their trash, and then they would take it to other dumpsters around town.
Isn't that what you do?
Yep. Isn't that what you do?
No.
Oh, come on.
What? I don't live in Columbia.
You've never brought your trash from where you live to Columbia?
I did once because I was scared at my apartment.
But so is what we had happening, and we heard this from
big coons in the dumpster or something.
Yeah.
More like sketchy people around the trash cans.
Isn't that a weird place for sketchy people to gather, is around a big dumpster?
Well, it's my fault for trying to take my garbage out at 3 in the morning. But
probably true.
So is what you had happening is people said, this is crazy. They're like, and you had a 2-bag limit. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So what you had people doing is you had people taking their trash, and they were going to like businesses and businesses in the town of Columbia. They were getting frustrated. So I'm guessing, I don't know, maybe you had a lot of folks from Columbia actually taking their trash and dumping it into the recycling bin in Ashland. And so that they've taken it out. They said because they're putting trash in it. And apparently, whoever recycled it said, we can't take this anymore. It's supposed to be recyclables, and there's too much trash in it. We can't spend our time going through banana peels and dirty diapers and coffee grounds to try to get an aluminum can out of there. We're not doing it. Ideally, they'll be coming up with a solution. Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie is off today. I'm Brandon. John's here. Producer Hannah. Mr. Houseworth is here, too. Okay, so he's talking about a Florida man. I love this one. Do you know what you're doing yet, by the way, for What's Hot with Hannah at 7:25-ish?
I do.
All right, is it a good one?
I think so.
Yeah, what do you got?
I can't give it away. I can't sell the sizzle yet.
All right.
No.
Come on.
What are you, a rookie, Rathert? But it sounds like a story. Hannah would use a story in What's Hot with Hannah. It would sound like a Florida man, because in Florida, there's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of crazy things that happen here in Florida. But how about this? How about this headline? A Mocaine man. I like it.
Huh.
Yeah. A Mocaine man. This according to CBS Channel 13 here locally. Apparently a Mocaine man was charged. He had drugs inside the Callaway County Sheriff's interview room. Prosecutors charged a Mocaine man, accusing him of bringing drugs into the Callaway County Sheriff's Department, according to court documents. Happened towards the latter part of last year as deputies were talking to this dude about another investigation. I don't know if they just brought him in and said, hey, dude, we want to talk to you about this. And he thought, okay, I'll show up. Or I don't know if he had been apprehended and brought in. I'm not clear here.
Well, I hope that he wouldn't just decide to carry it in on his own free will.
A Florida man.
That's true.
Apparently... So deputies were talking to this dude about some investigation. They walk out of the room, I guess, to go get some coffee or something. So they're watching on camera, and you would think if you're being questioned in one of these rooms, I'm assuming you would know, by the way, you're on camera. You're always on camera. As a matter of fact, we're on camera. You can watch us on our YouTube channel.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
So when he was alone in the interview room, they watched on camera the dude move something from the rear of his pants to the front of his pants.
That's not suspicious at all.
And isn't that weird, too, where people will put these drugs, they hide them in their drawers, and then later they ingest these drugs? Gosh. The deputy said the guy gave him a bag with 6 individually wrapped bags with a crystal rock-like substance in it. Tested positive for the meth.
That's not mine. That's what I always like, too. Like, you just pulled it out of your pants.
I don't know
That's
how.
That's not mine.
I don't know
my
how.
Pants.
How these got into my drawers, officer, I have no idea.
Who put that there?
Somebody took that bag of dope, and unbeknownst to me, they crammed it down the front of my drawer. I don't know, officer. Again, a Florida man, except it happened in Callaway County. This was Mocaine, man.
Making us proud.
Coming up, let's see. Some of what's happening with Tucker Carlson, and did you hear everybody on Fox News talking about Tucker Carlson airing that previously unviewed footage from January 6th? Of course you haven't, because they're not talking about it.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
There were a lot of people in the Capitol at the time who I think were scared for their lives. So you can, however you want to describe it, but it was an attack on the Capitol.
When you come into the chambers, when you start opening members' desks, when you stand up in their balcony, to somehow put that in the same category as a permitted peaceful protest is just a lie.
Republican Senators John Thune from South Dakota and Kevin Cramer, also a Republican senator from North Dakota, responding to the special that Tucker, well, I guess it wasn't a special, it was the regular Tucker Carlson show, but he showed previously unviewed footage from the Capitol, January the 6th. Kevin McCarthy handed this off to him and then said, show it. And we're going to hear what Kevin McCarthy, how he is responding to this. By the way, because he said his goal all along, and I want to preface everything with this. He said, hey, man, because all we saw was the BS on the J6 committee. All this, we didn't see everything that happened. We saw everything that they wanted us to see.
I said at the very beginning, transparency. What I wanted to produce for everybody is exactly what I said, that people can actually look at it and see what's gone on that day.
And coming up, we're going to get his reaction. We'll have some audio of him, his reaction after it aired on Tucker Carlson's show. So they're showing a bunch of video footage, and it shows the quieter moments, and they show the shaman dude, Jacob Chanzy, who's now doing 3.5 years in prison for what he did on that day. They showed footage of him being escorted around the Capitol by police and stuff like that. So Tucker Carlson shares a lot of innocuous footage of the events that day, and that is great. I love that he did that. I do. I appreciated Kevin McCarthy releasing it to Tucker Carlson because we've only seen one aspect of it. Now, that does not take away the nasty crap that happened that day. And also, still to this day, those people that say, well, Trump is accountable for this. It's Trump's fault. Those are progressives, and we know how progressives think. They are not responsible for their own actions. Things are everybody else's fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's somebody else's fault. No personal accountability from the progressive mindset. So that's why they blame Trump for what happened on January 6th. Trump is not to blame no more than if I told Hannah to go steal me a pack of Marlboro Reds from the break time. That if she did it, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. And incidentally, Trump never said, hey, go riot at the Capitol. Go crap on Nancy Pelosi's desk. I don't think Trump said that. Trump is not responsible for that stuff.
Amber Heard was there? Oh. Took you a second.
It took me. Yeah, that's right. Amber Heard right on the bed. And she said it was the Yorkshire Terrier.
Yeah, it was a dog.
And remember what Johnny Depp said, John? He was like, I've seen Yorkshire Terrier turds. That was not Trump did not tell people to go and do those things that happened. The whole premise that Trump is to blame for this, it's sad that there are people that really believe that he is responsible. I feel bad for people like that. Anyhow, so Kevin McCarthy heard it. He said, hey, I want to give Tucker Carlson these. So to see what else happened, because you did not get a full picture. You saw there was no it was just all the bad stuff. And yes, bad stuff did happen that day. Nobody is denying that. Kevin McCarthy gives the tapes to Tucker because nobody else, there's no other national news outlet that's going to show 41,000 hours of previously unseen footage that would depict other things that happened that day. A lot of, as we've already heard from a couple of Republican senators and what their take on what Tucker Carlson aired. Did you hear Sean Hannity talking about the Tucker Carlson thing on the show? Sean Hannity's here weekdays 2 to 4, right before the Total Show. Did you hear Hannity talking about this yesterday on his radio show?
Nope.
Because he didn't. Did you see Sean Hannity last night on Fox talking about this? Did you see Laura Ingraham on Fox last night talking about this or any of these? Have you heard any of these other shows on Fox TV? I'm just asking. Have you heard any of these other shows on Fox Television? Have you heard? We carry Fox News twice an hour. We carry them at the bottom of the hour and the top of the hour. Have you heard Fox News Radio covering what Tucker Carlson did? What about anybody else on Fox?
Tucker's got it up on their Fox opinion page, but that's about it.
Yeah. There is little. You go to the Fox News website. There is very little on that, too. And this is my take. Here's what I think has happened. Kevin McCarthy. His take after this aired the other night on Tucker Carlson.
I didn't see what was aired. What I want to do exactly is give the transparency to everybody.
I didn't see what was aired. And he said again, he said several times, I just wanted to give transparency. It sounds to me like he is backing away from what Tucker Carlson aired. Now, here's the thing. I think a lot of people have seen, they've watched this and go, oh my God, what they told us happened is not true. No, that's not what happened. Tucker Carlson, and rightfully, he's opinion. And he showed what he wanted to do, just like a talk show host might talk about what they want to talk about. But if you're saying, well, see, there's really nothing bad that happened that day, well, you, in your mind, you know exactly what happened that day, what happened at the Capitol. But I think to hear Kevin McCarthy saying, I didn't watch the Tucker special. I know I gave him all the tapes, and I appreciated that Kevin McCarthy did that. I think that was important to show, hey, here's other things that were happening leading to and around that day. Nobody on Fox is talking about this. Everybody else is talking about it. You know they're hard and heavy on this on MSNBC and CNN. The one person on Fox that did talk about this yesterday was Bret Baier. And Bret Baier is pretty much straight-up news guy. Bryant says Laura Ingraham was showing it last night. So that was last night. Tucker played this Monday night. So Bryant Davidson said Laura Ingraham was showing it last night. Didn't see Hannity. Haven't heard him on the radio show here on the stations talking about their state. And, of course, Fox has the mothership, by the way. I like to call them the mothership. They have other things going on with that Dominion lawsuit and the text that came out. Tucker Carlson talking about how he hated Trump and how even Fox News executives were worried they were going to upset their audience by calling the election for Biden. So Fox has a lot of other things going on right now, and I'm not here to trash on Fox. I'm just here to present a point of view. When I hear Kevin McCarthy saying twice, I just wanted transparency, I didn't watch the Tucker Carlson show. I think, and we've heard from several Republicans. As a matter of fact, another Republican, Tom Tillis, North Carolina, he responded after he watched it.
Is this a lie? I think it's bull. I was down there, and I saw maybe a few tourists, a few people who got caught up in things, but when you see police barricades breached, when you see police officers assaulted, all of that, or you had to be in close proximity to it, if you were just a tourist, you should have probably lined up at the visitor center and came in on an orderly basis.
So you have three Republican senators, I think, backing away from that Tucker Carlson report, too. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. You can text us, 874-9390. Stephanie Bell is off today. There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
Good morning.
John Marsh is here.
Hello.
There's producer Hannah.
Hola.
All right, coming up, we're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah at 7:25. It's 7:35. This is interesting. We talk about top consumer complaints. But top consumer complaints, our Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, sent me an email and said, hey, here's the top consumer complaints in the state of Missouri. I just think that's kind of cool when we look here locally. The other big thing that's happening on a national level, and this interest, even if you're not in the broadcast industry, this is something that we want to be paying attention to, the FCC. So Biden had picked this gal, Gigi Sean, picked her in October of 2021 to be a part of the FCC. He nominated her. October of we're in the calendar year 2023 now. She's dropped, she said, never mind, forget it. This after Senator Joe Manchin, who was on Fox yesterday, incidentally, said he would not support her confirmation because her record, especially now, quoting Joe Manchin here, especially now, the FCC must remain above the toxic partisanship that Americans are sick and tired of, and Mrs. Son has clearly shown she is not the person to do that. For those reasons, I cannot support her nomination to the FCC. And I urge the Biden administration to put forth a nominee who can bring us together. I don't know if that's going to happen in this day and age. Are you going to bring anybody together? Is that possible, John? Are we going to be? I'll tell you this. There were a lot of people together last night. Statesman of the Year event, Scott Flom, Missouri Times, a whole bunch of other folks folks. Governor was there last night. Margie Van Deven, head of education in the state of Missouri. A whole bunch of folks at this event last night. I like those events because you get lawmakers outside of the realm of lawmaking responsibilities and outside of the Twitter thing, and you get them in this event to honor somebody.
Did you get recognized by your toes by anyone?
No, but I'll tell you, there's people like Pat Thomas, who's done incredible work on behalf of the Republican Party over the years, and people that, like, and it's so weird. People will look at my feet and say, why are you wearing shoes on those rare occasions? Because I do. I want to show up to the Statesman of the Year event one year in flip-flops.
I'm surprised you didn't.
I know, but it's a kind of a nice event. And I want to go.
Like, that stopped you before.
That's
he
true.
Didn't have the dressy flip flops.
Oh, okay.
I have been on more than one occasion. Jacket, tie, nice jeans, and flip flops. Like, I want to go to the Callaway County Lincoln Days coming up Monday night and go dressed up, but go in flip flops.
You ought to do it.
I should. I just get worried.
Didn't you wear flip-flops to Parsons' State of the State address a couple years ago?
Yeah, I did, but I was up in a broadcasting. But the roast of Caleb Rowden last year, which was incredible, by the way. And that was the one I had people coming up, people in the political sphere, I've never met, come up, look at my feet, go, you got to be Branden Rathert. And it's just such a weird thing. Anyhow, where was I? So, yes, I wore shoes last night, bipartisan event. But why this matters about this Ms. Son withdrawing her nomination, it's because it has to do with internet stuff, too. And also, think about this. If you get progressives, and she is hard progressive, like she'll bump her head into a brick wall and keep knocking. She probably already has, based on some of the things that she has said. I think she's hit her head against a brick wall several times. She's an activist.
Yeah, she was at the FCC and left immediately when the Trump administration came in. So, yeah.
So bipartisanship is saying, hey, this is what we need, and this person is definitely, positively not it, but it would control some of what we say on the radio and would control, because we have some funky behind-the-scenes rules anyway, because sometimes people say, well, how come you didn't talk about this? How come there's some things we can and can't do? And some of the rules for the FCC anyway, besides cuss words, and we don't use a lot of cuss words here we don't use any because they're against the FCC regulations. But there's weird things like, for example, you can say the word ass, and you can say other words like the word hole. You can say the word hole. But Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:26.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
I have yet another. It's crazy how once one story comes out, there's a gazillion more that follow.
And I've been wondering, has this been happening more often? But there's slow news. There'd been a combination of slow news days, and all of a sudden we're reporting on all of the. Because it seems like there's been a rash of these in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, so this one is slightly different, but I have been following several stories of escaped zoo animals over the last month or even two.
Yeah.
There was a leopard that got out. There was a bear at the St. Louis Zoo that got out of his enclosure twice. There's been monkeys that turn up missing. It's weird. Well, this one goes back 20 years, so maybe this was the OG one. And it's the zoo in Texas, and they apparently lost an alligator. It either disappeared when it was an egg or a brand new hatchling, and they always suspected that somebody stole it.
I don't know where that alligator. You got the alligator? I
don't know how you just lose one or how somebody sneaks an alligator egg out in their pocket, but whatever. A game warden was doing an investigation last week looking into some, alleged illegal hunting, and during her investigation came across an 8-foot alligator and somehow or another decided it was the stolen alligator from the new Braunfels Zoo.
From the 7.5 feet ago little alligator or the egg that escaped?
Yeah, this is where I get confused because, the story starts out with a stolen egg. And then 20 years later, how do you look at an alligator and go, yep, that's the one. That's the one that we're missing.
Remember, John, we're looking for the alligator. It's kind of scaly. It's got some humps on his back and kind of dark green, got big teeth. Have you seen that alligator?
Maybe you could compare his teeth to the bite mark scars on the handler's arm or something.
But, even if it disappeared as an egg, you would have zero idea of what it looked like. And I'm going to be honest, when I heard of an alligator living in Texas as somebody's pet, that's the other thing, it was somebody's pet. I was like, Texas shouldn't have alligators because it's I think of Texas and I think of dry heat. And apparently Texas does have lots of alligators, but it's...
Yeah, over on the east side, over near Louisiana, they do.
Yeah, around the coast. So I was wrong there, but still, I don't suggest stealing any alligator eggs or hatchlings anytime soon for anyone listening.
Probably good.
You know what would be cool is we get ready for the Como Man Show. We got to bring an alligator to the Como Man Show. It's happening this Saturday, actually. Tickets, you can get them at the door. This is happening Saturday, 10 to 3, Holiday Inn Executive Center. Sports, food, beer, power tools. One year we did a belching contest. That was the only year we did the belching contest because it was a waitress from Hooters who won. The very first year we did it, we brought a bunch of folks up on stage, and we don't discriminate. It was the Man Show. This woman, she took part in the belching contest. Little tiny old waitress from Hooters won the belching contest. $20 at the door, $50 VIP, includes food, drinks, things like that. $15 online. If you don't want to pay $20 at the door, go to the websites, 939theeagle.com, KWOS.com. Pay $15 online. Coming up top, Missouri consumer complaints. And remember when the news outlets were free?
and I had these terrible headaches, was diagnosed with having anyway, they had to take the top of my head off a couple times, see if I had a brain.
And my head, I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching if I only had a brain. I'd unravel every riddle. Good morning. For any individual.
There's John Marsh. How you doing, bud?
Good.
Producer Hannah.
Hello.
I'm Branden Rathert. Mr. Houseworth is here.
If you only had a brain.
Stephanie Bell, she is going to be back tomorrow. Stephanie Bell, I'm serious, man. One of the hardest working people, like insane, in a good way. In a good way. Everything she does. Matter of fact, last night we were at the Statesman of the Year banquet, Scott Fawn, Missouri Times. It's something they do every year. It's bipartisan. And I don't know, John, do they typically, I'm trying to think. So last year, Roy Blunt was Statesman of the Year. This year, Democrat Senator John Rizzo was honored. Do they go back and forth like Republican, Democrat every other year?
Typically? I can't recall, but I know they've had a lot of movers and shakers at the State House every year.
And it is actually, it's a cool event because you get people. Caleb Rowden was there last night. I got to spend a couple of minutes chatting with the Commissioner of Education, Margie Van Dieven. It's just a cool, and Governor Mike Parsons. As a matter of fact, I think we posted a couple of pictures up on the Facebook page if you want to see Steph and I last night at this event. Rather appreciate. Here I'm talking about bipartisan after doing this on Joe Biden.
I had to take the top of my head off a couple times, see if I had a brain.
And my head, I'd be scratching.
I'm not very bipartisan right now, am I, Marsh?
Nope, it was Caleb was Statesman of the Year a couple years ago. Caleb Jones from Missouri Electric Co-op's former state rep out of Montauk County.
So it was a nice bipartisan event. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We are so glad you're here. You can reach out. We are getting an incredible collection of texts this morning. Like maybe we should do a listener mailbag maybe coming up at 8:10. We were talking, Michael text 874-9390. We were talking about the Como Man Show. This is coming up 3 days from now, 10 to 3. This is a huge deal. We've been doing it. I think this is our 5th or 6th year. I don't know how long it's been going on, but it's all kind. These aren't people at booths handing out little pamphlets and stuff like that. A lot of interactive stuff. We have a VIP option if you want to go. It's only $50.
Got some good giveaways too.
VIP
sign up for.
P option.
And if you're lucky, Brandon might escort you over there.
So we were talking about I think it was the first year. And this was actually, I was so proud of it because it was I have very few ideas. I like to come here and I do this because this is what I think I'm decent at and I thoroughly enjoy it. But when it comes to other stuff, it's, I like to research for the show, chat with people. I like to hobnob a little bit and get dressed up and go and do this stuff. So I came up with this, let's do a belching contest. That idea was born out of a weird Thanksgiving story. So this would have been 2001, Thanksgiving of 2001. So,
when I was 1 year old.
So it was a harsh time. We were on the heels of 9/11. Me and Trevor's mom were going through a very nasty divorce. The nastiness was there was a custody dispute. Like I would have hired Helen Wade locally to handle this for me. And so we're doing the Thanksgiving, and the way it worked out, I had Trevor for Thanksgiving, and I can't imagine when you're a 7-year-old kid, your first Thanksgiving without your mom and dad. I've never been through that experience. I went through it when I was 14, 15 years old. So we go to a friend's house because I've got my best friend and my best friend's kid, and Trevor happened to be best friends. And it was kind of not as festive as a Thanksgiving as we see on the cover of the magazines. And after the dinner, it's kind of quiet. We're doing our best we can as single dads to make this enjoyable for the kids. And one of the kids belched. And it broke the silence here at this Thanksgiving table that two single dads had worked very hard to put together. And instead of saying, that's rude, you don't do that at the Thanksgiving table, we laughed. My kid did that. 7 years old, maybe 8. Well, then his friend, he did it too. He belched. And then before you know it, we're having a belching contest. I mean, like not just the loudness, but like arm movements and high fives and machine gun belches, and it was incredible. And it became an annual event at Thanksgiving for us.
I have a hard time seeing you participate in this.
I'm not big.
Because you're like weirded out on stuff like that.
Bodily functions, I don't care what hole they're coming out of. I get weird about them. Oh, by the way, this is coming up in the mailbag. We were talking earlier about the FCC. Biden's pick to run the FCC. Ms. Gigi Sean, I think it is. She's withdrawn her nomination. She says it's because of a tax. Facts are not a tax. She's just too bipartisan. She has an agenda.
The GOP guys aren't going to confirm her in the story.
That's right. And what put her over the edge, Joe Manchin, Democrat senator, said, no, I can't do this right now. But we were talking about why it's important as it relates to internet stuff, and we can't have an activist controlling what we do here on the show. It's not important just for people in the broadcast industry, but it's important for you as a consumer of the broadcast industry. And we're talking about some of the weird rules, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that we can't talk about. And then the obvious words. And one of the weird rules is, you can say ass, like Joe Biden's an ass. You can say that. You can say the word hole, but you can't combine those words together. If you put them together, you run afoul of FCC regulations, and it'll be Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah, John Marsh, and Brian Houseworth. So somebody said, well, could you, if you flipped those two words, could you say that? I don't want to test the waters, but I'm assuming you can. And this, you know what? This is the other thing as it relates to media coverage. A couple of years ago, obviously, the national news outlets, CNN, MSNBC, USA Today, print websites, whatever, CBS, ABC. Remember this?
Well, we're on the brink of World War III because Donald Trump took the worst possible option given to him in a slideshow.
In this country, we have begun to overestimate the dangers of impeachment and underestimate the dangers of a deranged president retaining control over a nuclear hyperpower.
We cannot wait around while Donald Trump is in control of the nuclear weapon.
Your objection to potentially going into World War III cannot be procedural.
The biggest danger of the Trump presidency is that we are always just a Trump whim away from nuclear war.
When it comes to unlimited war, we seem to be able to invent that money very easily. And to me, it belies a lack of moral priorities that people have right now, especially the Republican Party.
Well, and that's why there are elections. They have consequences.
Yeah. You're right, Chris Cuomo there, who, by the way, no longer works for CNN. I think he's found some kind of online gig. Remember all that?
He's self-employed.
Is he?
That's just usually what people say when they don't have a job.
Right. He's doing a social media program.
I'm unemployed. It's like what happens after you go to college and study history or fine arts to get ready for a career in being unemployed. Remember that? All those folks, they had, and here's the sad part about this with the news outlets. People believe everything that is told to them by the news outlets. And they lied. All of them lie to you. They present a point of view. All of them do it. I don't think anybody can deny that. They all do it. But the progressives who wet the bed at night when Trump was president, World War III, they scared people. That's what bothers me especially about these progressive news outlets. They scare people. It was World War III. Climate change. It's got to get you. It's got to kill you. Next year, you're going to be dead. And then every year, next year, you're going to die from climate. They scare people. And that's what they did. World War III. Do you
2
think
minutes closer to Armageddon on the doomsday clock?
Tick-tock.
TikTok?
Tick-tock. No, not TikTok.
Not the TikTok, just TikTok.
Do you think we're closer to World War III right now, John?
Boy, I don't know. If I lived in Taiwan, I might say so.
See, and I would say yes. So
we grew up almost desensitized to it, you and I, though.
Yeah, it's true. We grew up in the Cold War era, hide under the school desk and put your hands over your head in case there's a nuclear bomb. And
we lived on Air Force bases that were presumably ground zero on the bad guys' target list.
You always, even as a young kid, even before I understood what Cold War was, living on Beale Air Force Base in California, where my mom was working on the U-2s and SR-71s and B-52s and T-38s. As a kid, you knew how important the work was happening on that Air Force base, and you also knew as a kid what kind of peril you could potentially be in. So Ukraine invaded by Russia. NATO says that was because of Biden's sloppy pullout in Afghanistan. So you had Afghanistan. Now you've got Russia invading Ukraine. And now you've got China saying, hey, we might help Russia with some stuff. And I just don't, when I watch these progressive news outlets, I just don't see them saying what they were saying a couple of years ago when we were nowhere close to a World War III. We were nowhere even close. Trump, as Americans, he had our back. Our back as Americans, he had our back. Joe Biden does not. But I don't see MSNBC and CNN talk, we're on the verge of World War III. Look, China's teaming up with Russia. We're teaming up with Ukraine. That's the perfect stage. All you got to do is walk up the steps now, launch it, boom. But no, we're good. Coming up just a few minutes from now. By the way, we have a cool guest coming up. I always enjoy when this person comes in and tell you who that guest is coming up. We're going to do that about 5 minutes from now. Here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 93.9 The Eagle, 93.9theeagle.com, 104.5 News Radio, 950 KWO.
together at a time when the supply has been reduced and there's no quick way to increase it. The hens are what's being slaughtered to try to control avian flu.
Beryl Benson, agriculturally economist who worked for the USDA, the EPA, and the University of Missouri, chatting with KOMU about egg prices. They're still high, and he's saying because they're having to slaughter all these chickens, and it takes a while for a hen to get of egg-bearing age, and it's because of the avian flu is what they're saying.
They have to be in their, what is it, their prime?
Their prime. Like a dude hits his prime at 21, a woman hits hers at 35, a hen hits hers at 6 months. Then she can lay eggs. But they're saying it's the avian flu is knocking out the population. They're having to and I guess you can't eat the. So shouldn't chicken meat be a lot cheaper if we're having to slaughter all these hens? Can you eat a hen that has the flu? I don't know this. I'm not in the egg industry. And aren't these things supposed to be wearing masks? Wouldn't the chickens, if you put itty-bitty masks on the chickens, maybe they wouldn't spread the flu?
So, quick Google search. It says, as long as you cook it correctly, usually you're fine.
Usually.
Eating deer with a chronic wasting disease, right? I don't think it'd be well done enough for me.
No. Because then you would think, well, if you can't eat the chicken meat, they're having to slaughter all these hens all at once. Shouldn't we be able to get chicken like at 12 cents a pound or something? Eggs are expensive, but heck, just eat the chicken. Welcome to the show. Glad you're here. Quick traffic note. This is along I-70, okay? Big accident apparently between the Providence exit and the Range Line exit on eastbound 70. So going towards East St. Louis. Going east towards St. Louis, not to East St. Louis. Although 70 will take you there too. There's
across the East Bridge.
Yeah, into a whole box of immoral things. Big accident between Providence exit and the Range Line exit on eastbound 70. Traffic is backing up. If you're in that area, please feel free to text us. Let us know what's happening there. By the way, it reminds me, talking about eggs, we have a guest that comes on from time to time. She's really cool. We enjoy having her in the studio because she explains when it comes to Medicare. She just explains it in a way that's just incredible. It's easy to understand, and she does a lot of these things. She does them like free when it comes to consultations, and she also happens to have some chickens and Great Danes and chickens right now, or probably she might be out feeding them chickens right now, and they have a transistor radio, and the chickens listen to the radio station here on Transistor Radio. She's coming in studio this morning a little bit before 9 o'clock.
And all those chickens have an extra right wing, right?
Oh, they're very good.
Nice. So she's here in studio coming up at 8:50. We always enjoy when she comes into the show.
I think some of us enjoy it a little more.
Come on, Hannah.
Nothing, like, I love Wendy. I also love when she comes in.
Wendy
Just
Sprouse.
don't make our guests uncomfortable, okay?
Oh, come on, man.
Branden, and I wish Stephanie was here because her and I have had many conversations about this.
What?
Do you want me to just be honest?
Yeah.
It's so obvious that you, like, flirt with her when she's here. It is so obvious.
No.
You get this certain look on your face, and when she's speaking, you, like, lean in and act like you're really interested. You get that look on your face like, oh, yeah, tell me more.
He's really interested. He's interested in all our guests.
We're just
nice. But this is different, John.
No.
When you've worked with Branden as long as I have.
Hannah, that's not accurate because, for example, like when Holly Rader comes in the studio.
It's the same exact way.
Fact check.
That's what I'm saying. I treat all guests the same.
Yeah. It's just, it's funny to watch you, like.
In defense of Branden, he kind of has that same kind of attitude when Chuck Basie comes in.
Or John Combes.
Oh, man. I think we're just being nice to each other. You think it comes off as flirting?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Well, I have to ask. That'll be the first question. To heck with Medicare. Let's talk about flirting. Do you feel like I am flirting? You'll be able to see that interaction then. You can go to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, wake up in Missouri.
And see if what Hannah is saying is accurate. But it's cool. She gives a lot of free info. She does a lot of cool things. So we're excited for her to be here because it's useful info too as we start. When we get to that point when we need things like that, it's craziness to try to navigate that stuff. And she does really good. There's Novak Djokovic. I don't follow tennis, but I do follow this kind of stuff. I know the name. I know who he is. He withdrew from an open tournament that's coming up this week, and here's why. Apparently, his application for a COVID-19 vaccine waiver to enter the United States may have failed. He's unvaccinated against COVID-19. Good for him. I guess I'm shocked here. We're still doing this? We're still.
How many tournaments has he gotten upside down in now? I know the Australian thing was a big deal with it. It could potentially cost this guy a lot of money.
And that's what I respect about this guy. He's losing a lot of money, but he's standing on his principles. From somebody who dropped their health care insurance when Obamacare went into effect and got pinged for several $1,000s, I respect this guy. He's losing money standing on his principle. And the United States of America is still doing this. Insane. I think we're going to get into the mailbag and behind these DESI scores. That's coming up at 8:10.
happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
So, the Missouri School Improvement Program, or MSIP. What is MSIP? Well, it's the state system for reviewing and accrediting local education agencies, or LEAs. It outlines the expectations for school practices and student outcomes, with the goal of each student graduating ready for success in college and career in life.
That's Lisa Serrano, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, yesterday, and announcing the release of much-anticipated test scores with the caveat, well, you can't compare these scores to previous scores because we have changed how we've done the system. I don't know how much I buy into that because I think they – here's what I think. And, again, this is just a theory. It's just something I'm thinking. Like, they knew, a lot of folks did, test scores were going to be bad because of the government pandemic that started in 2020. Take the kids out of schools, put them in face masks, even though they're very vulnerable, that they're the least vulnerable to this stuff. Take them out of school. And there were a bunch of folks that were saying, you know, that might not be a good idea. Number one, they're not that vulnerable to this. Number two, you're talking about the formative years of a child's life, and you want to take them out of school? Now, you could also say it's been a blessing. Because look at the number of people nationwide that started seeing what their kids were doing in this horrible wokeness that's been happening in schools. And the way little kids were made to feel about the color of their skin. We saw all this discussion even happening in school districts locally, even right here in mid-Missouri, not just nationwide. We saw it right here. And people said, you know, not a good idea to take them out of school. These are the kids' formative years. So I think maybe that was, hey, let's change. And I could be wrong. Maybe this was years in the making to change how they do this. But maybe they changed because they knew it was going to be bad. They knew a lot of folks in management probably knew, hey, the scores are going to be bad because of what we did to these little kids. So they're saying it's not comparative. One local school board member chatting with KOMU Channel 8.
We were presented with an update by our superintendent, which contains some fairly dismal data.
Dismal data. That's Helen Wade. She is from the Columbia Public School District. She's on the board there. So, and you can read some of that, and I think the headlines really say it all. This from the Missouri Independent. Latest testing data show K-12 student performance dropped dramatically. KOMU CPS scores in bottom half of state schools in DESE's annual performance report. New report card. This from the Missourian. New report card shows a stress CPS and key academics and absenteeism. I bet there's a lot of absenteeism. Quick traffic notes.
Yeah, Brandon, I know you're busy with stuff. Just to let people know, I've been on the phone with Joint Communications. Just put out a text alert as well for our text alert people. Boone County Joint Communications is telling me that eastbound I-70 right now is completely closed at Range Line. Traffic is backing up. We've had a number of listeners say it's really bad. We also have a separate crash. People are trying to get off on the business loop. Not far from there, there's a crash there as well. But apparently eastbound I-70 really backing up, so slow down. Avoid the area if you can. If you can get off either before or after that would probably be a good idea.
And then this also, I don't know, this is a result. So this is along I-70. I think this is worth repeating.
Yeah, it's completely shut down because eastbound I-70 at Range Line. So basically, we're talking about eastbound I-70. It would be to the south would be the Boone Electric Building, the headquarters. Off to the north would be the Dobbs. There's a Dobbs there. I believe there's a Starbucks to give some people where that is. Eastbound I-70 is completely closed and traffic is backing up. Also, we're hearing people are slowing down in the westbound lanes to take a look, tying up traffic to take a look at the hearing that as well. So just don't do that. Obviously, avoid the area. But we have had a lot of crashes this morning. It's been very, very busy.
And then we've got this. Apparently, there is a wreck at Clink Scales and Broadway. This also in Columbia. Fire trucks, police are there. Does not appear to be any injuries. But they took out somebody. Says, I'll quote listener Dave here. Dude took out a traffic sign. Excuse me. Dude took out a traffic sign. So be careful. All right. Okay. Thank you, Brian Houser. John Marsh is here, too. How you doing, bud?
Doing good.
Thank you. I'm doing all right, too. Thanks for asking. Stephanie Bell.
Oh, good Lord.
How are you?
I'm fine.
You look good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great.
Hannah, you look good, too, today. But you always look good.
Thanks. See, that's how you talk to Wendy.
There you go.
Oh, come on, man. So we have a guest guy, Wendy Sprouse, Medicare nerd. She comes in from time to time, and because she does some really good work. And Hannah has said, I don't know, Brandon, it seems like y'all get flirty with each other, and there's this energy. I think I treat all of our guests that way.
I'm just saying, I'm not the only one that has witnessed this and acknowledged it.
Whenever I encounter Jefferson City Police Chief Wildy, I'm the same way towards him. If it's no, all right. Let's move forward from that topic. More headlines. New report card shows a stressed CPS and key academics and absenteeism. Yeah, if you can't even get the buses going, what a mess that can be. Yeah, there's absenteeism issues in that school district because the buses aren't even picking up the kids because they have driver shortages. Also, this from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, new rating system shows decline for Missouri schools as open enrollment gains support, and that is gaining support in the legislature. Oh, also on another traffic note, did want to mention this really quick. If you're at the Capitol today, crews are shutting down one lane of West Main near the Capitol today.
Yeah, there is, and again, that work was expected, but it is going to tie up traffic. The eastbound I-71 is the one I'm really concerned about. To your point, you're bringing up the test scores and the lack of bus drivers, if you will, for the company in Columbia. I'm working on a story right now, and I have some numbers from Michelle, just trying to put them together about the shortage. It is an
Michelle
issue.
Baumstark, spokesperson for CPS.
For CPS, yes, and we know someone that we've talked to that their bus person didn't show up for a week. So it is an issue.
The Columbia Public School District, as I understand it, they contract a company to do that.
They do.
They're not necessarily employees of the school district.
They're not employees. They're basically outside contract. Their bus barn is up off of Clark Lane, up by the Golden Corral.
Speaking of buses, did you see what the city of Columbia is going to be doing with their public transit?
They're dumping a whole bunch more money to study why nobody rides it or something?
Yep.
Oh, my God.
They got like a $1.4 million grant, and they're going to use some of that to fund studies.
Which they've already been doing, interestingly.
They've been studying that crap for years. How come nobody rides the buses? What can we do to streamline this? And meanwhile, Brian and John and Hannah, you keep giving us your taxpayer dollars for these buses that nobody... I shouldn't say nobody. I've seen one or two people on those buses before. And in Jefferson City, they've recently, as a matter of fact, I was reading the Jefferson City News Tribune this morning, and is it Sue Gibson? Is that her name, John? I think. Writes letters regularly to the News Tribune, and I love it.
She does.
But she's railing on leadership in Jefferson City because they've scaled back on buses. Well, they're scaling back on buses because they're probably doing the smart thing. Like, listen, we don't have money to pay for this. I'm sorry that it takes you an hour and a half to get to the grocery store now, Sue, but that's the way it is. We can't keep asking Brian Houseworth to take all the money out of his wallet and give it to transportation.
Well, and while I was in college at Mizzou, I had to park all the way out at Trowbridge. And so I'd have to catch the bus to get to, the center of campus to get to class. And I believe that the buses that run on Mizzou's campus are also Columbia City buses. They're just, on campus instead of downtown. And there is a fully electric bus in the loop. There was one when I was a student. And it was like you were riding on a spaceship. It was weird.
So that's why, and people, it's not being cruel. They're simply, and I appreciate
transit runs at a deficit almost every place in the world. Not much less mid-Missouri.
Yeah. So I appreciate Jefferson City's like, hey, we got to cut back. I'm sorry, it's going to take you a little bit more.
And they up the price of their bus fee.
Yeah, and it's like that's here's the thing, man, and not to be mean, but sometimes life happens, and you adapt. and you adjust when the reality is that you keep, taking money from everybody else to put towards this thing that, as Marsh said, is always in the deficit pretty much no matter where you go. Sometimes people say, you know what, enough is enough.
The numbers, by the way, for Go Como, and I did check. This is from the city, again, from DeCarlin Seawood, and I did check. He is saying, and the city is saying, that on Go Como, more than 43,000 passengers ride, because I'm checking my story from a week ago, and they're going to build 5 new basically shelters. 43,000 passengers ride it each month. That is what they're saying, and the study is on top of another study that they're doing, right now on that. But there are some of those routes I've seen. There's not very many people on there. It depends, I guess, on where the route is.
And I'm not now. There is one and I'm trying to think of bus stops in Jefferson City maybe that I've seen with more than several people at once. But I know there is in Columbia shops at Broadway Mall, like at 63 and Broadway. There's a bus stop. I see a lot of people standing in the bus stop quite often because you got a shopping plaza there. So I appreciate when people say, you know what, we just can't do this anymore. I'm sorry about public transportation, but what's worse than running at a deficit is then taking money from producer Hannah and keep pouring it into this losing proposition.
Yeah, that's what you do with your weekly bets all the time.
It's different, though, Hannah.
You take money from me and you pour it into your bets.
I will bet you a week's worth of Hannah's salary. That hasn't happened since probably Monday.
I'm trying to plan a wedding here. Come on.
All right. And I do want to highlight some of the positive stuff, local school scores. So we look at some mid-Missouri school districts. Some folks did really, really well. Cole County, R5 and R1. Fulton did pretty well. Jefferson City School District doing fairly well, too. Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Glad you could be here. I think we want to do listener mailbag. We've been getting some really, really good texts at 874-9390, 874-9390. If you want to be, we might include your stuff in the listener mailbag, too. And here's the cool thing. This is why we encourage, I think we'll do it at 8:35. What's cool about the mailbag is it's like a wide array of topics, things that people have been responding to throughout the morning, whether it's the Washington, D.C. police chief, he came out, so Joe Biden siding with Republicans on not loosening. They want to minimize sentences for serious crimes in D.C. That's the woke stuff. They want to loosen. They want to lessen serious crime penalties. The chief of Washington, D.C., chief of police there is saying, no. As a matter of fact, you should probably be doing the opposite. So it might be topics on that. It might be, on eggs. You never know what it's going to be. Coming up, we're going to be doing the Morning Bell. Business news, a little twist only. Stephanie Bell can give you this. She's not here today. We'll be handling it for you. And I will tell you, there is a twist this morning. That's coming up. morning. It's 8:25. Time for the Morning Bell Business News. Little twist only. Stephanie Bell can give you. Stephanie's not here today. But good news, she is going to be back tomorrow. So before we get into today's business news, Dow Jones opening up about 6 points higher. NASDAQ futures up 11 points. SP futures up 1 point. All right, business news today. I always kind of think this stuff is interesting. You know, when we talk about the polling, when it comes to polling, for what it's worth, but when we talk about polling, when people are asked the question, is the nation on the right track, wrong track? And over the past couple of years now, we know where it's been. We are on the wrong track. Polls continue to indicate this time after time. Polls continue to indicate this in the past 2 years. We are on the wrong track time after time. And I always take it as it's kind of the mood. It's the reflective mood of the country. That's how I read those numbers. If you have a majority of people that are saying, since the tragic events of January the 20th of 2021, we are in the wrong direction, to me that says, I don't feel good about the way things are going. That's what I think. It's the collective pulse of America. That's just my take. So here's a survey from Fannie Mae, and the highlight, it's about how do we feel. I have a good friend of mine. His name's Patrick, and he'll say things. I say, but I feel. He says, screw your feelings.
Man.
I know, right? Forget about your feelings. But I kind of enjoy this. How are we feeling about our personal financial prospects? And I will say, before I get into this mirrors me. Now, listen, when and not that I like to compare a whole lot, but
you are a dude, so
when Trump was president, if I look at my own personal financial and professional situation, I will say it looked good, it felt good, and you know what? It got good. So it wasn't just about feelings, it was about facts. Man, things got really good just for me. And I'm hoping they did the same for you. I'm guessing they did. I will tell you this. I can't divulge too much, but I will tell you this. My financial, and I'm not talking just my retirement. I'm talking about other revenue streams that I personally have, as Hannah would say. And that's a true story, and I can't say too much, but yeah, it's poor.
Well, have you checked your retirement account lately?
Nope.
Smart.
I accidentally did, because usually we get a statement that says, hey, we've put this percentage into that, and I don't know how to read that stuff anyway. I have friends that do that stuff for me, but accidentally looked one day. I was like, ooh.
Well, so I had looked several months ago just because I was curious, and I don't sweat it too much just yet because I know I have time, right? And I think my rate of return was like negative 23%. And I checked it just a couple days ago, and we're back up to only like negative 3%. Yay!
And that's
called progress.
Right, and that's what the White House would actually call that. We're looking good. And by the way, kudos on you. You're 22. You're saving now for retirement. You're good, dude. Hannah, you got nothing to worry about.
I'm trying to get out of here as fast as I can, man.
Amen, sister.
Whether Social Security will still be around for you is another story for another day, right?
I'll just have to pay into it for my whole life, and then I won't get to benefit from it.
Let me sell off this survey because I want to get back to that Social Security comment that you made, John. New survey Fannie Mae shows only 31% of Americans expect their personal financial situation to improve. Numbers have not been this bad since
07, 08?
Yep, you are correct. Why do we keep dumping money into Social Security? They say, hey, it's going to be insolvent. Well, then how about we stop paying it now? My gosh. That's insane. Come up with a different plan. All right, coming up in the mailbag, some local high school female football players and a text from my dad. This is disappointing. You might have something in the mailbag, too. Get it to us, 874-9390.
I think just local news is like the most important stuff to me, even though it's kind of like bad stuff going on around me, but it's the most relevant to me.
Where I come from, there's an old plowboy out turning up dirt. Where I come from, there's a preacher man in a cowboy shirt. Where I come from, where a couple boys fight in the parking lot. No, nobody's gonna call the cops. Where I come from. See that door right there?
So, water policy can go in all these different, it flows in different directions. Oh, I have puns on water.
That might be the first actually funny thing I've ever heard her say.
It's a Hannah-ism there.
It is.
Kamala, the water policy it flows in different directions.
Pretty good.
You think?
Yeah.
It's nothing close to a Hannah-ism, but then...
Oh, I have puns on water.
She's one of those... Again, I talk about how much I'm like Joe Biden, John.
We thought Dan Quayle was a funny vice president.
Kamala Harris v. Dan Quayle.
I wonder if she can spell potato. No, it goes way back.
So I'm a lot like Joe Biden. I hate to admit that I have something in common with one of the worst, most progressive presidents, at least during my years of political acumen. But
eat too much ice cream?
No, I forget what I'm talking about. I mix up my words. Sometimes, a few minutes ago, I was talking about the police chief of Washington, D.C. I said the police chief of Washington, D.C. is coming out. And I meant to say he's coming out and saying, listen, I agree with the Republican take on this, but I squirrel and I went to the next topic. And
wasn't there also an unfortunate incident where you and Stephanie were talking about the live video streams on the Wake Up Facebook page and the YouTube channel, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and you said something along the lines of, you can put us up on your TV screen while you're getting busy in the morning? Didn't you say that?
I was trying to say while you're getting ready, and as I know you're busy, but it came out as you're getting busy in the morning. Watch the show.
You got to watch it. You'll miss out.
Which, if you think about it, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can go to our YouTube channel. We're really easy to find.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Watching the Facebook page. If you were to put that into practical reality, what if you were taking what I said literally? And it was a mistake what I said. I chase squirrels and I forget my words, and I apologize about that. But can you imagine if somebody's, they said to watch the show while we're getting busy, hon? And somebody... All right, let's move forward. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Glad you could... Well, you guys...
Just setting the mood for anyone taking your advice.
So...
now we got the nose hair cam going.
So... Like if I were talking to a couple who's getting busy, whatever getting busy for people means. Maybe it's brushing their teeth,
feeding
whatever,
the kids.
However you listen, the interpretation is up to you. That's not on me. But I'm imagining a couple getting busy, and they're watching this, and I'd be like,
God. That's disturbing.
That is kind of spooky.
That's why you should watch the show when you get a chance.
Or maybe not.
Especially if you're getting busy.
Come on, man. It's Friday. Why not, honey? That's why you should watch the show. You get a bunch of behind-the-scenes info stuff. It's kind of fun to watch sometimes. Coming up just before 9 o'clock. Wendy Sprouse, Medicare nerd, she's going to be here. But I wanted to touch on this. Attorney General Andrew Bailey sent me an email saying, hey, here's some of the top consumer complaints of 2022. And I think this is cool. We see consumer complaints all the time. But what's really cool about this, what Mr. Bailey sent me, these are specific to Missouri. And you've got things... travel and timeshare complaints. Timeshares. Do people still sell timeshares? I know somebody's making a living off of buying back timeshares. Is timeshares? Because remember, that was the thing. My parents, they got duped into one of those Lake of the Ozarks. Gosh, like back in the, we got a timeshare, and you never used it. Solicitations for subscriptions, publications, financial, retail, wholesale. Number one complaint, no-call complaints. 39,000 complaints from consumers regarding illegal telemarketing calls and no-call violations. I know that's a frustrating one, and it happens all the time. I thought it was just kind of a cool local take on what we see nationally.
Letters.
All right, time for the mailbag. We don't get any letters.
So many letters.
Texts, Facebook messages.
A whole bunch of letters.
And I'm kind of excited.
I'd even read mail from a cow.
I think this is the interesting thing about the Wake Up Mid-Missouri mailbag is you get a wide array of topics. And today we're talking about some local some local young ladies who played on high school football teams that we know very well. We've got some stuff on flip-flops. Matt Goen, who's from Mexico, I think. Saw him a couple of months ago at a chamber event in Fulton. Hope to see him Monday at the Callaway County Lincoln Days. That's happening Monday. But we were talking about last night. Statesman of the Year event put on by Missouri Times. Scott Fawn involved with that. Last year it was Roy Blunt. This year it was State Senator John Rizzo. Talking about should wear flip-flops. This because people come up and say, why are you wearing shoes? And I just don't have, I'll say sometimes it's none of my business what you think about me. I don't care what people think about me. 9 times out of 10, I pretty much live by that. But going to an event in flip-flops where everybody else is dressed in a suit, just not comfortable with that. Matt says, we'd love to see you at the Lincoln Days in Callaway County in flip-flops. And that's the thing. I really want to go to the wall here and wear a suit in flip-flops.
There you go.
I've done, jackets and ties and vests even and nice jeans and flip-flops. But would that work in would the people of Callaway County accept Wake Up Mid-Missouri if we showed up at this event Monday dressed in a suit but wearing
flip-flops? Be the only guy not in boots, but okay.
So that's what we love about the mailbag, a wide array of things. Sometimes the topic is serious. Sometimes it's different. And and also got a text from my dad this morning. 2 texts, incidentally. So,
oh boy.
Yeah.
You're in trouble.
Well, here's the thing. So we talked about our conversation. By the way, I-70 is a mess right now. So I-70, this is, I think, eastbound. There's an accident. Apparently, they've got it stopped in places. Brian Houseworth is keeping an eye on that for you. So the mailbag, our conversation with Blaine Lukemeyer the other day that's gone viral. As a matter of fact, just checked. So Blaine Lukemeyer, Stephanie asked Blaine Lukemeyer, local congressman, asks him about more cameras on the House floor. And he said, well, and this was in relation to whenever they were trying to confirm House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And Mr. Lukemeyer said something, and that stuff, I believe it does happen. He was talking about people that go in and they'll say something incendiary, and then they go outside and talk to the TV cameras. And so he did not say any names. Congressman Lukemeyer did not say any names. And I said, you mean people like Matt Gaetz? And it went from there. I heard a lot about this last night at that event, too, by the way. Anyhow, on Matt Gaetz, John Combest, johncombest.com. He took a video clip. He posted it on the Twitter. Matt Gaetz got a hold of it. He posted it onto his Twitter page. 315,000 views of the tweet. The video clip itself of your little old show here in Mid-Missouri, Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio, 950 KWOS. The video itself has been viewed at least 114,000 times.
You ought to get a kickback from Idaho Tourism on the deal.
And here's the thing. So I had just been on vacation in Idaho, and I'm wearing an Idaho hat. And, John, I got to tell you, I'm glad you said it out loud because I thought the same thing. I'm like, I wonder if Idaho will give me some money for this. So now the St. Louis Post-Dispatch has picked up the story. And, it's kind of cool. And I try to tell my dad sometimes. I feel like I'm bragging, and my intent is not to brag, but I want my dad to know, hey, Dad, your kid's doing okay now. Because my dad put up with a lot of years of we didn't know which way it was going to go with his oldest son here. And so I try to keep him abreast of what's going on in life, and I hate doing it because I feel like I'm bragging. But this morning I'm like, hey, here's something that Stephanie Bell and Hannah and John and Brian, we can all brag about this. So I texted my dad a link to the article from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I'm like, hey, he's gonna respond and say, oh yeah, that's cool, good work, blah blah blah. And here's how he responded to this text in which I'm trying to brag. My dad says, well, I think they both should just stop talking. Referring to Gaetz and Lukemeyer. Well, I think they should both shut up. I'm like, but Dad.
Probably right.
Yeah, he's probably right. Hannah Larson kicked for the Hickman Cupies. we were talking about female kickers as it relates to transgender sports. This is a different issue. People like Hannah Larson several years ago. She may have been the one that came on our show, actually. She was kicking for the football team.
It sounds familiar.
Okay.
And what a great day to celebrate this than International Women's Day.
There you go.
And so we were talking about, well, she was good enough to make it to the men's football team, and she kicked for the Cupies. And then Sophie kicked for Rockbridge. Was that Sophie Cunningham, the former Mizzou standout now playing in Phoenix?
I'm like 98% sure.
So those are some of the things that we have in our mailbag this morning. John, anything you want to pass along before we move forward to chat with Wendy Sprouse, the Medicare nerd?
We heard from Chuck Basie on Wake Up Columbia, and he said, don't forget CPS employees were allowed to bring their children to in-seat schooling during the lockdown because of the lack of daycare.
Yeah. And by the way, as it relates to CPS schools, they can't afford a bus company to do their buses. They just recently spent $15,000 on coffee for the administration building. Teachers bring in their own. They spent $15,000 for coffee in the administration building while the teachers are having to rely on donations and using their own expenses to help pay for coffee. Couldn't you somehow use $15,000 to help get these kids back and forth to school?
Here's a big old serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
All right, some leftovers before we get into the Gary Nolan Show here on the radio stations. By the way, traffic I-70 especially really along I-70, closed stadium exit from what we're getting via tech. I shouldn't say closed, but this is I-70 eastbound. There's been a massive accident. Apparently, they've shut down portions of the interstate. Brian Hausworth is keeping up with that for you. Marsh, you got anything? By the way, also in leftovers today, Wendy Sprouse, Medicare nerd, is here shortly. Marsh, you got anything for leftovers?
Yeah, Missouri Law's Second Amendment Preservation Act, the one that bars local police from enforcing federal gun laws. A federal judge has ruled it is unconstitutional and void.
I heard Dave Rowland on the Gary Nolan Show yesterday saying they expected that ruling, and it's going to be, I know as a matter of fact, William Bailey, our Attorney General, Andrew Bailey is going to be appealing that. Also, today, last day to register to vote for the municipal election, so make sure you get in and get registered to vote in the city of Columbia. Chuck Basie, John Potter, who you vote for in the school race. That's who I would highly suggest. Right now, we want to welcome into the show the Medicare nerd, and I love this because every time we see Wendy Sprouse, she is the Medicare nerd. I always nerds. There's a reason that we call her the Medicare nerd. She knows everything when it comes to Medicare. Did you hear us talking about you on the show? What time was it? About an hour ago? It was like 7:55.
I did not.
Thank God.
Probably a good thing.
So what's the?
It wasn't anything bad about Wendy. It was more bad on Branden.
Well, it wasn't bad. It was just we get along famously.
Correct.
And we have for a long time. And some people perceive that as, how do you perceive it, Hannah?
It's a little flirtatious, I think.
She said there's energy between us.
There is?
But it's mostly just Branden being a flirt, though, that I've observed. He always gets this different look on his face and like he's trying to really intently listen, and that's not standard for Mr. Rathert.
I always thought that's just how he was with everyone.
Nope. Nope.
So, anyhow, does it feel to you like I'm flirting?
Sometimes a little bit.
Yes. And I was telling him I'm not the only one that has observed this behavior from him.
And see, I don't think, because I think of the other women that come into the studio that I don't like. Holly Rader. When she comes in, her
you do the same thing
I do?
with her.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's new with Medicare? What do we need to know?
This isn't something new, Branden, but the one thing I've been getting a lot of calls on lately that I'd like to mention today is people are very confused with Medicare, of course, as you know, but they're very confused when they're continuing to work past 65. When they continue to work past 65, they do not need to enroll for Medicare as long as they have credible group coverage. But they get all this mail saying they're going to incur a penalty if they do not sign up when they're 65. So then they call me frantic. They don't need to worry because as long as they have credible coverage, they will not incur that penalty.
Go on. I'm fascinated by what you're saying.
Making it very difficult on our guest, Rathert.
Yeah, come on.
Let me.
He shined up his head right before you came in, Wendy.
I thought
He's
I
getting
noticed
so
that.
red. Look at how
So,
red
Wendy,
his face is.
what do you get? And I know this is out of your realm, but Social Security. I know people we tie in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and do you get people that are, even though it's outside really your wheelhouse, you get people starting to say, "Hey, what about Social Security?"
I do, and I know a little bit about Social Security, and I know a little bit about Medicaid, but I tell everybody that calls me when they want information on Social Security, Medicaid, I tell them, here's what I know. I know enough about it to be dangerous, so I would not listen to everything I say, but there's enough of it that ties into Social Security or to Medicare, Social Security and Medicaid, because Medicaid is state, Medicare is federal, Medicaid is for low-income poverty, Medicare is for people that have worked and have paid in. So I do try to explain what facts I do know because it's kind of sometimes hard to get a Social Security office, but...
And by the way, a lot of this information you're sharing with us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning, you're glad to do it. People come in your office, phone call, and you don't charge. How can we get a hold of you?
573-292-NERD.
All right. And if you need to, you can just text me because I have her number. I'll get it.
Or I have a new email address.
Okay.
The Medicare Nerd at gmail.com.
The Medicare Nerd at gmail.com. And that phone number one more time. Because this, by the way, and I will tell you from years of experience and having known Wendy for a while, she has a passion for this, and she's doing this really to help people. That phone number one more time.
573-292-NERD. That's 573-292-6373.
All right. Anything else you want to drop here in the last 10
seconds? I think
seconds?
we're just flirty because we're comfortable with each other, Brandon. That's what happens when you have good friendship.
Have a good day, Wendy.
Thanks, you too, Brandon.
Nolan's next here on the show. All right. See ya. I'm done. Literally. Probably I'm done.